The Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform calls this public hearing to order. It is 9 a.m. on Friday, July 13, 2018. Present with me today is the Vice Speaker Therese Terlahi. Thank you, Senator, for joining us. The purpose of this public hearing this morning, and we will be having basically 3 blocks. So 9 o'clock this morning, and then we will recess, and then we'll go back in at 2 to discuss some bills pertaining to land sales, and then we will come back again at 4 o'clock to discuss some CLTC related bills. But for this morning's block of public hearing, we will be receiving testimony on the executive appointment of Ms. Ann Roth and Mr. Stephen Carrara to serve as members of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency Board of Directors. Bill number 214-34 COR, as corrected by the prime sponsor, amended and further amended by the committee, introduced by myself, relative to parental subdivisions and adding a new subsection relative to creating sibling subdivisions. We will also be hearing Bill number 277-34 COR. It's an act to authorize the Department of Public Works to condemn 205 plus or minus square meters in fee simple of Lot 10, Suburban, Municipality of Inarajan, and to condemn 777 plus square meters for a temporary construction easement of Lot 10, Suburban, Municipality of Inarajan, for the Route 4 Ajayan Bridge replacement project. And finally, Bill number 278-34 COR, introduced by myself, an act to authorize the Department of Public Works, Government of Guam, to condemn Lot 2143-6RW, Municipality of Tamuning, Lot 2143-1-6-R /W, and Lot 2143-1-5G, Municipality of Tamuning, relative to the Route 14B Ypao Road reconstruction and widening project. Notice of this morning's public hearing was provided to senators, stakeholders, and the local media, as well as published in the Guam Daily Post on July 6, 2018, meeting the 5-day notice requirement, and July 11, 2018, meeting the 48-hour notice, thus meeting the requirements of the open government law. The committee will continue to receive written testimony until 4 p.m. on Wednesday, July 18th. Please address testimony to Senator Thomas Sieta, Chairperson, Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform, and can be dropped off at the mailboxes here at the legislature or emailed to office@senatorada.org. So we'll begin receiving testimony for the appointments of Ms. Ann Roth and Mr. Stephen Carrara. Nobody else has signed up from the general public to provide testimony. Or were you, Mr. Perron? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Bob Perron. Okay, for both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and and you're the chairman, right, for the board. I'll have you come up, present your testimony, and then I'll ask Ms. Roth and Mr. Carrara to both come forward at the table together, and then we'll just have our discussion from there. Okay, so Bob, if you could.
Okay, good morning, Senator Ada, Senator Terlahi, Senator Torres. My name is Bob Perron, and I'm the board chair of Guam EPA, and have been so for the past 7 years. And I'm here in support of the renomination of Ann Roth and Steve Carrara to continue serving on the Guam EPA board. They've both been excellent board members, showing a passion for the environment and for our island. Ann has shown a particular interest in the revolving recycling fund. She's always the first one to get clarification on how much is in the account, what it's being used for, and is it being used properly. Steve has shown a passion for the illegal dumping issue. In his travels around the island as a runner, he regularly directs the agency to illegal dump sites and brings up ideas as to what we should be doing about it. I hope that this committee and this legislature will vote to allow these two fine individuals to continue in their capacity as Guam EPA board members, because they really are valued members of the agency and of the board. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perrin. Do any of the panel members want to have any questions of Chairman? And thank you, Senator Torres, for joining us. All right. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll call forward Ms. Ann Roth and Mr. Carrara. So if you have any opening statements, go ahead and present it, and then if we have any questions, we'll also then ask it at that time. So we'll start with Ms. Roth. Well, turn on your mic, please. Yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
Got it. Good morning, Senator Ada, Senator Tlahi, Senator Torres. My name is Ann Roth. I'm a member and have been a member of the Guam EPA board for over 5 years. I'm excited to be on that board. I do enjoy it. I like working with the other board members, but especially working with the staff. They are all knowledgeable. They're excellent. They know what they're doing. And hopefully we can continue to improve things on Guam. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carrera?
Yes, good morning, Senators, and thank you for having us. I agree with the board member Roth. It's a great agency to work for. You know, we just kind of provide our guidance to the agency when they ask questions, but we should be proud of them. They do a great job, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to help, and always willing to do more if we can. Thank you.
This actually would be the second reappointment for both of you, right?
More than that.
Right.
It's every 3 years, and we come
okay,
up.
so this would be your third then.
Probably.
Yeah.
I believe this is my second reappointment.
Okay. Yeah. The one question that I have, and both of you can go ahead and respond to it. One is the issue of, the agency's mission is basically to monitor what's going on in our environment, in our island, in our community, to ensure that we have a clean and healthy environment there. And so we have the different programs within the agencies that are tasked with certain responsibilities with respect to hazardous waste, clean water, etc. And when they identify violations out there, I guess the program managers take necessary actions and ultimately issue a notice of violation, which then gets submitted, as I understand it, to the administrator who I guess takes it to its finality. Right? Some of the notices of violations have a penalty associated with it of about maybe $2,000. I'm aware of one that was issued, I believe it was in 2015, that had a penalty associated with it of, it was a penalty that was a notice of violation that was issued in 27 January 2015. And it had a penalty associated with it of $490,000. And apparently that notice of violation was never issued to was never issued out to the company, the violator, alleged violator. And it just basically sat. And took a death. I don't know where it's at now. There was a couple of other ones, one for $46,000. Whatever happened to it, the program managers were never apprised of the final disposition of these things. I raise this because I can imagine it can be quite frustrating for the programs to go through all this work, issue the notice of violation, and then nothing comes of it. At the very least, to be informed that no, we're not going to send it out or what. So I guess my two-part question is, do these notices of violation pass by the board, at least for the more significant ones? And what are your thoughts on just some of these things that I've raised? So anyone, both of you can answer?
Well, I mean, we're involved in a significant number of instances where a notice of violation is issued. Some of them go to hearing, and we have a hearing officer who presides over them, or the agency will be involved in direct settlement negotiations with the offender. I think in some situations, I recall one where I think there was a rather large fine, and the land wasn't worth that much money, and it just would have been a paper fine. I recall one situation like that. I mean, we could look into it further, but I think in that situation it was like, we're never going to collect. There's no point in issuing it for, just for the sake of issuing it. And I think there was some sort of resolution that was reached on it, other than putting a fine that's never going to get paid. I mean, sometimes there's a draconian response to it, but if it can't unwind itself, that's what I recall from that situation.
Okay.
But I think that was a while ago.
Okay.
But we are actively involved in the more recent ones. When there was the fire in Dedido, I think we were, that was a subject of discussion, and it was negotiated with the attorney for the agency.
Okay.
And I think it was a great idea to appoint an attorney to the agency, because it really helps move the matters along and have somebody give on-site guidance.
So is it just the appeals of notice of violations that come before the board, or when it becomes a real significant?
No, the notice of violations do come before the board. I mean, they've gone, the staff has presented it, given it to the administrator reports it out to the board. And there is some discussion on it, what action is being taken, whether it's in litigation or appeal process, and what's the next step. So
Okay.
We're aware of them.
All right.
Just to follow up on that, so would the board minutes reflect action on all the notice of
Yes.
violations, even when there's a settlement, even when you decide not to go forward with one for
Yes.
any reason?
Yes, sure.
And so it's a board decision whether to go forward or not?
Yes, but, it's based on the recommendation of the administrator and the attorney, but yes. So it will be in the minutes.
All right. And
But it's not a unilateral decision on the part of the administrator.
Oh, no,
as
we
to
don't
what-
vote on whether we're to proceed with an NOV. An NOV is, the recommended action is given by the staff, and we don't vote on whether to proceed or not.
Okay.
It's a violation.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry.
I had a couple general questions and then a specific one, but in general, is there any business that either of you is involved in that you think might be a proposed conflict for your membership on this board, although I know you've been serving already?
No.
I just want to
not
put
for
that
me.
on the record.
Not for me.
No.
Mr. Carrara, you're still work at IPE? Is that correct?
I'm at ITNE and IPNE, and
All
also
right.
the ITC building.
Is there any part of that business that's regulated by EPA?
Yes, and I recuse myself when any issues come up. We recently, there were regulations for underground storage tanks, but,
All right, so on the underground storage matters, you recuse yourself? I was wondering if they
I'm
had-
sorry?
So on the underground storage matters, you recuse yourself?
I
on
believe
those?
so, yes.
Or is there anything else?
we've never had, knock wood, fortunately, we've never had any issues come up with environmental issues, but I would recuse myself if obviously the company were involved.
All right. But even when the company's not involved, for example, setting the rules and regulations, I think we just saw a new set of those, right, for the underground storage. Were you involved in that?
I mean, I was there when the arguments were presented, but, you know, I may have asked questions, but I don't believe I voted on that.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to get that information for the
That's
record.
a very good question. Thank you. I mean,
Thank you. And then I just want to follow up on, I've been communicating with EPA, so I wanted to know how, if you are following along with their quality, it's called a Quality Assurance Project Plan for the sampling of Agent Orange or herbicide orange, the testing that they are doing in conjunction with Joint Region Marianas.
Yes, I guess.
They were, I guess, told by the governor in January 2017 to test for Agent Orange on Guam and to confirm. And so they, after that, partnered with JRM. So JRM, I think, is paying for the sampling. And I just wanted to know what you know about this, because I've been trying to get this. The director had promised me a copy of the project plan, but I haven't received it yet. Then he promised it again for this week. So I just want to know if you're following along with this, because I just want to bring it to your attention, because there have been concerns about the methodology, about the company that was hired, about whether really are we on the Guam side doing all that we should be doing when it comes to that, to confirm or not confirm. And so I know that the director's in a kind of a hard position, because right now there's no funding to do additional testing. That's what he's relayed to me. But I just want the board, if they have recommendations regarding this, to please examine it, review it, and we're relying on you to give us your best recommendations and a plan of action that you think would really bring justice for all of us in regards to this issue, at least.
We'll follow up with the director.
Yeah,
Keep you apprised of it.
Okay.
I think for
It's
the
a good
last
thing.
2 meetings, you and I hadn't been confirmed, so we haven't been at the meetings.
Oh,
But as
really?
it
No,
comes
We've
up,
been at the meetings, but
Oh, your term lapsed.
yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. And I agree with you. I know many members of the EPA staff, and they are very good at what they do. And in fact, that's one of the very good agencies that I think the people who are hired, they have expertise, and they're really diligent. They really care about the environment. So I commend them also. Thank you very much.
And before we go further, I do want to, for the record, welcome Senator Torres, Senator Spaldon, and Senator Regine Biscoli. Senator Torres, did you have any questions?
Thank you. It was good to hear your chairman talk about the practical contributions that you also offer in addition to your expertise. It's always refreshing to hear that there are people, for example, Mrs. Roth, with your financial expertise, how you have an eye for the recycling revolving fund and making sure that that's being monitored. And Mr. Carrara, also the very practical thing of going through and happening on illegal dump sites and bringing that to the attention. Those are always good practical things that we like to see, not only from competent people like yourselves. But what I also was going to ask you is, when we have different agencies come here, a lot of times it seems like there's overlapping interests that in times where finances are scarce or limited, it draws the question of whether there should be greater collaboration with a lot of the agencies in terms of the sharing of duties, or ensuring that overlapping duties can be minimized so that you can be more efficient with funds. And I was just wondering if you could comment on whether we can have more of a collaborative effort with agencies such as Department of Agriculture, Coastal Management with Department of Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and also Customs and Quarantines, because a lot of times they're also looking at areas within Guam that touch upon your agency's concerns as well. So my question is specific to whether there is a conscious effort to collaborate with them to maybe carve out duties and expenditures of funds in accomplishing the different duties. Because a lot of times when you happen, for example, with agriculture, they'll talk about certain mandates in coastal protection, environmental protection, which probably dovetails into EPA's concerns as well. So is that something that is a plan of action, or has that always been part of the existence of the board and the policy direction with EPA?
They seem to work well with other agencies. I know they collaborate with University of Guam, provides a lot of training. Like, they work with the GWA people quite often. There's usually someone from GWA that comes to the meetings. And so I don't see as there is a problem in getting cooperation with the other agencies.
Are there opportunities for federal grants, for example, that deal with protection of the environment, whether it's wildlife or contaminants, that there could be a shared resource between EPA and Department of Ag and Customs and Quarantines and Coastal Management? That's kind of where I'm going, is whether you can...
I think it's more of a question for the administrator than a board level, but I can tell you at a board level, we really try to be pragmatic. And then as we do interact with other agencies, like Ann mentioned, you know, GWA is often before us at the board meetings. They provide, you know, information because it relates to, with respect to the wells, and then we had an NOV down south. So there is, I think, you know, the right amount of cooperation between the agencies. Long term, whether, you know, solid waste gets involved with EPA, or, you know, because we have a separate board there, that's a much bigger question than the board. But I mean, from our perspective, we always try to do things, look at things pragmatically, and try to, you know, support the administration.
That's good to know then. That's good to know then. So the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, more or less.
You know, it's a small island. I don't think any of us are operating in a vacuum, and to the extent that we have connections outside of the agency, you know, we're always happy to make those calls and you know, foster collaboration with other agencies.
I just want to express my support for you and to thank both of you also for agreeing to serve. I mean, you're clearly very competent people. We couldn't have asked for better board members like yourselves to come on board, and so I just want to say Suzus Masi, and you certainly have my support.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's happy to give back to the community.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Spadon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning.
Good morning, Senator.
You know, you both have basically served on this board several terms, I believe. Is that correct? Ms. Roth, what, 3 terms, I believe?
I believe so.
And Mr. Carrara, 2 terms?
This will be my third, yeah.
Oh, okay, this will be your third. I guess the question I just posed to you is, since you've been on this board all this time, what, aside from the financial issues that the government is facing right now, what do you believe are some of the burning issues or major issues that face EPA right now and the community? Can you just kind of like give us any of your thoughts on that? Or have you guys been doing such a good job that really there's nothing to really be too concerned about?
I would say, what are the practical, pragmatic ways to get rid of waste on Guam? You know, and it's not easy. I don't know if you've noticed, but in your recycling, you can only put little water bottles, containers, the plastic, and that's because there's no market for any other plastics, you know, to get them off island. So that waste goes into the landfill. What can we do about that? Is there anything we can do about that? And then, of course, the recycling fund, how to get that built up that we can actually get into proper recycling, you know, payment, encourage reuse and elimination of plastic waste. How do we get rid of the junk on island? That's the biggest problem. I mean, what is the real reasons? It's nice to say, let's get it all together, but how do you get rid of it? You know. It's not easy. And with the trade wars going on, it's going to get harder to get rid of. There's going to be less markets, I think, for this item for a lot of these items off island. So we're stuck with them.
I mean, the biggest issue I see facing the agency is just developing more internal talent. I mean, there are there's a certain skill set needed within the agency, and there are folks who have them, but we keep adding things, and those guys are stretched thin. Like, we just started introducing radon testing. You know, the same people who are doing other stuff now are doing radon. So you have some dedicated people who've been there many dedicated people who've been there for a long time. And, you know, you keep adding on to that. And, you know, we publicize job positions, and sometimes people don't apply because either they're not interested or that skill set isn't on island. And so it would be great to develop a program to do that. And I concur with Ann here on we got to reduce, reuse, recycle. It's an overwhelming tide here, and I think that's why people dump illegally, because they can't get rid of the stuff. It's expensive sometimes, and I think the best thing is to reduce if we can. It just drives me insane, like all the packaging when you buy something, that you hold it in your hand for a second and it's gone. And that's, I mean, it's not unique to Guam, it's everywhere. And I wish I was smart enough to come up with an answer, but I don't have it. But at least I think, that's why I mentioned solid waste before. I think long term, eventually those two get driven together somehow. Okay. But that's just my thought. I mean,
no, and that's what I was looking for, just your thoughts. And again, I know that you know, there's a burden placed on you, and I appreciate you both stepping up to the nominations to serve on this board again, because there are a lot of frustrations, I'm sure, aside from your normal course of work during the workday, and then you have to deal with these issues facing our island on the board. Along those lines, Mr. Carrara, you know, in terms of development of talent and whatnot, my understanding is EPA is, for the most part, funded through federal funds. Is that correct?
I believe that to
be the
case.
It is, about 95%.
95%, something like that. I know that under this administration, the federal administration, under President Trump and whatnot, there have been some changes to US EPA, and perhaps who's in charge and what are some of the policies that they are now looking at. Has that affected Guam's EPA agency?
Not yet.
I mean, because
I think we were expecting that. I don't think it's filtered down yet.
Not yet.
Okay, but you probably anticipate maybe, perhaps that there could be some changes, drastic changes, maybe even in the funding level?
I believe that's the general perception. I mean, that's what was discussed and anticipated. How that plays out on the federal level, I think we'll have to wait till the midterm elections here to see.
All right. When it comes to this military realignment, that I believe we're going to see a lot more work starting next year, how closely are you working with the federal authorities, you know, to make sure? And I'm sure there's some very strict regulations in what they have to do to move this buildup and the construction of the base. There are a lot of regulations that will probably govern all that. Are you working very closely with our federal partners or the military partners on this?
One of the divisions does work with them, particularly as how it affects environmental concerns. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, and the military's come in. We had that closure up in Anderson.
Yeah, dump closure.
They've come in. Look, there's a long-standing history between the military and the local government and people that precede certainly my involvement in the island. But I mean, there is a presence that we do interact with them. Can it be better? I guess it always can be better, but I think there's a willingness on their end to participate, and as it moves forward in the future, I mean, that door is open for us engage with them interactively.
And I ask these questions more for perhaps our edification up here, not so much directly. Well, I guess there is a direct tie in terms of, the consciousness of the vote for your nomination. And it seems to me, of course, you have your own perspectives, and when it comes to the environmental issues through EPA, and I appreciate the answers. But I'd also bring it up to make sure that you understand that you're not working in a vacuum either, that the members of this body, the legislature, are always very concerned, maybe not so much directly and in isolation, in a vacuum, that EPA is working in a vacuum, that it's part of a bigger picture, right? And that EPA has definite responsibilities, and we rely upon EPA to make sure that there is environmental protection for our island. And that's the reason why I asked those questions. So I appreciate it, and you do have my full support. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Spaldon. Senator Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I also want to thank you both for accepting the governor's nomination to these positions and for your past service. Also working with the EPA team, we've had an opportunity to hear from some of the folks who've worked there for many, many years. They're very familiar with a lot of these challenges that they encounter, challenges to enforce existing mandates, that they don't really have the resources to fully enforce them in the way that they want to. And so I think that's a huge challenge for the EPA team and for the administrator, is to be able to really get out there and do their jobs. They don't have all of the resources that they need to do that. And I hear what you're saying about the challenges with single-use plastics and all of those things. And so part of me feels like we can also do a better job in educating our community, and through innovative and in different ways, maybe using social media. And so I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are about, or maybe some of your ideas on how we can better engage the community to let them know different ways that they might be able to reduce their waste, ways that we can engage media partners and get the message out there so that it's not just EPA, grinding at this issue, but we're engaging the community in a way that's going to make a real impact, especially with what you mentioned with the global situation and China no longer accepting recyclables. So I wanted to ask if you have any ideas on how we can better engage the community.
Might start with, there are a lot of things you could do, and we're trying to work on it. One way is perhaps plastic bags, the elimination. I was in the States, and when I went to the stores in a couple of states, when I had all my items on the thing, and they left them there. And I said, can I have a bag? Well, yeah, 10 cents. So one state it was 7 cents, the other state it was 10 cents for a plastic bag. And I guess it's a matter of getting used to that. Perhaps we could implement something like that on Guam, get people more into not only just the grocery stores, but other stores to just reuse cloth bags, reusable bags, bring your own bags in. And it was, irritating after a while, and you say, oh, I wish I had brought my bags in, because there are some in the cars. The people I was visiting traveled with these bags all the time. They were used to it, and I wasn't. So that might be something we could do. That wouldn't be very hard to do, actually.
The agency does sponsor conferences, with the various partners in the community. And, like you mentioned, it's all about education. Straws drive me insane when they automatically bring you a straw. And subconsciously, sometimes I just open it and I don't even want the straw. So I try to mention it at the place. I think if everybody tries to do a little bit, maybe we could get a lot done. Case in point right here. I'm going to bring this cup with me. I'm going to try to use it once at least. Recycle to use it twice. I'll put it in my car. I'll probably wind up stepping on it. It'll fall under the seat, but it'll be, I'll at least in my mind, I try to make that step. And I like I said, a lot of little steps make a big movement.
Well, I'm really glad to hear about the conferences, and I hope that we can continue to support EPA in those efforts. And so this body actually unanimously passed a plastic bag ban, and that will be implemented in about 2 years. So we're really looking forward to EPA's assistance in rolling that project out. We know that as soon as that bill passed, we had folks from the University of Guam out in local grocery stores bagging groceries with complimentary reusable bags that they were giving to the community. So I think ways that we can continue to educate and get the message out in those fashions, and maybe even encouraging the private sector to assist EPA. I mean, if they know that there's a need, a lot of times these companies are more than willing to assist us. We just need to make sure that we engage them. So I want to encourage you to do that in your role as a board member. In addition, I wanted to know about what your thoughts are, and Ms. Roth, you had mentioned this about access. Access, we know that in the past, transfer stations have closed, and so I'm just concerned that there are people out there that want to be able to recycle, even though we're limited to 1s and 2s with the plastic. They do want to be able to do that, but it seems like we're just making it very difficult. And so I wanted to know what your ideas are to just have it be easier access for people to recycle the things that we're able to recycle.
There are stations available. I mean, there's, besides the main station at DPW, there's north and the south. There are stations, so I guess it might be public education aside from asking the mayors to, set up recycle bins. That might be something we could do, but just getting the word out that there are stations out there that you can return things to. I don't know.
It's like I said, I think we need to just encourage education. It's hard to do. I don't know what to do with half the stuff myself. I was like, I was at my mother's in New York this week. I had to replace fluorescent light bulb fixtures. What do you do with the light bulb? They said, dispose of it properly. Okay, what does that mean? Where do I bring it? How can I get it taken away? And I was like, I said, Mom, she goes, no, I'll tie it up and I'm sure they'll take it. And they took it, but I don't know where it went. Probably went to the landfill. And New York's pretty good about making you segregate everything so it gets recycled.
Education.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think maybe one of the things that I would ask you to work on is to work with the EPA team to just have like a frequently asked questions page on their website even, and continue to direct people to those things, because it's the common things like, okay, what do I do with my laundry detergent container once it's done? Can I recycle those things? What's recyclable and where you can go, show them a map. We have to make it so easy for people to be able to do this. I think sometimes everybody's so busy doing their own thing, they want to be able to do the right thing. It's just, taking that extra step and finding out is something that's a challenge for us. So we need to really make it super simple for them to be able to find the answers to these questions and be able to do the right thing. One other thing that's constantly being forwarded to me is all of these really cool videos online about how people are doing really innovative recycling. They're taking very simple machines and they take like these laundry detergent plastic bottles, and they're able to break them down into like little pebbles of plastic and use them for playground material or to fill in roads, things like that. They're also able to convert them into thread-like plastic and use them to create other things. So I mean, this could be a huge opportunity for Guam if we create an industry with things that are made on Guam from recycled material. And I know that a lot of our tourists would be interested in purchasing things like this. I know that a lot of our local residents, I see some of these women come from the Philippines with these really cool handbags that are made out of recycled plastic material. And people are using it in construction, people are using it in all these different materials, and they're very simple machines that probably wouldn't cost very much money. So again, I know that the team at EPA is already kind of inundated with all of the things that they are required to do, but if we could maybe go after a federal grant or get additional resources from maybe asking the private sector and really try to implement those things and be innovative in our approach, I would appreciate if you could move forward with something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, Jose
Thank you,
Masi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Lee. I have one question. The facilities that EPA is in right now, I guess there's what, 2 facilities up there? There's the lab, and then where the administrative people are. And those facilities are about 70 years old now, I think. Has there been any discussion at the board level insofar as pursuing grants or, just towards finding a home or building a home for EPA?
I'm not aware of any, but we could raise that at the next board meeting. And
I'm not aware.
I mean, certainly a new facility would be welcome. I mean, it's pretty dated.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, Speaker?
Thank you for, again, your service. I just wanted to point out, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are at least 4 or 5 different new candidates running for office for senator whose number 1 item on their platform is the environment. And I hear it all the time myself. I think the people remain very concerned about the environment, about the water, about contamination, about clearing of the limestone forests, hundreds, if not thousands of acres. And I know that you've been on this board for a long time, and I know that the employees are very, very good at what they do, but sometimes I think what these agencies could benefit from is the board being more like the liaison between the agency who is working hard every single day, getting those deadlines met, and doing the nuts and bolts, and this sharing with the public, so that the public knows what your vision is, knows what you're thinking in the long term about, and what you're going to address besides just the day-to-day things, and whether they should feel confident or not. And so I'm bringing this to your attention because I think, just based on what I've heard, is there's a lot of concern. And I know that you're going to support your administrator, but I just think you have to go beyond that. You have to help any administrator, and these administrators change, but you got to help these employees, especially these longtime employees. And I know them, and I've talked to them, and sometimes I feel like they might get a little not just frustrated, but lose enthusiasm because they've been doing it for so long, and this is just kind of what it's come down to. This is the only input they could have. And I want, and I would just want to stress to you that we are looking at EPA to really take care of us. You know what I mean? Like really take care of the environment. But it's been my experience that a lot of the processes, EPA's involvement is just by design very minimal. And that's been very disappointing to me. And it's not your fault, it's not anybody's fault who works there, it's just kind of, that's the design so far. So I'm looking to you to help us broaden that. And so I wanted to ask you too, is EPA part of the agency review committee for variances and building permits, things like that? I think they are. Mm-hmm. The DPW director is here telling us yes. So you're part of this agency review committee. And in some of the cases that I've looked at for variances and different types of things, a lot of these agencies do excellent work. They put in their recommendation, they tell us what the concerns are, and they say, please consider this, Guam Land Use Commission. And so I wanted to ask you if you follow up with that and you see, are they following your recommendations? Are they, enforcing what they kind of, sometimes they make these conditions on the developers. Yes, do this, but only if you're going to, expand the sewer, things like that. Mm-hmm. Are you following up with even just EPA's recommendations, whether they're being implemented, whether they're being enforced? And I think that's another way to boost, because I've seen they make recommendations, they don't really, put a hard line on it sometimes. They just say this is a recommendation. Sometimes Guam Land Use Commission will consider it, sometimes not. Sometimes they'll put it in as what do they call it? A condition. They'll put it in as a condition, and then after that, it gets lost, right? Like who enforces those conditions? And that's what I want to just remind you also, that we're looking at you, and I think the board could really help the agency in that kind of stuff. It's kind of like their relationship with the people of Guam, their relationship with these other agencies, and so that their voice, so that EPA's voice is really taken seriously and really heard. And I don't want these longtime employees to get any more frustrated than they might already be, or to feel like they're not heard. And this recycling revolving fund is another issue, right? Where it's really been a political battle almost for years, I think. So I think they could use your voices. And I think you as board members, you know, you've got that long standing in the community and credibility that you could really help them in that regard. I wanted to know, I guess just that. I just wanted to encourage you that please, yeah, if you could expand your roles to be long-term, to be kind of proactive, and to really be the voices of these agencies as much as you can to help boost those employees and the work that they are doing, to show the people of Guam that this is part of a big plan and that we really are going to take care of our water and our land. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
noted.
Senator. Anybody else? Okay, so no other questions. Thank you very much for showing up today and for accepting the nomination or the appointment to serve again. So we will report this out, and we'll consider then the appointments of Ms. Ann Roth and Mr. Stephen Carrara to serve as board members of the Guam EPA as having been duly heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senators.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. We'll go ahead and we'll move on to Bill number 214-34 as corrected by the prime sponsor, amended and further amended by the committee, introduced by myself. And it's an act relative parental subdivisions and to add a new subsection C to section 62104 of chapter 62, Guam Code annotated, relative to creating sibling subdivisions. No one has signed up to provide testimony. The Department of Land Management did submit written testimony providing their recommendations as to what further changes should be considered for the bill. So with that, we'll go ahead and consider Bill 214-34 as having been duly heard. We'll move on to the next bill. That's Bill 277-34, introduced by myself. It's an act to authorize the Department of Public Works, Government of Guam, to condemn 205 plus or minus square meters in fee simple of Lot 10, Suburban, Municipality of Inarajan, and to condemn 777 plus square meters for a temporary construction easement of Lot 10, Suburban, Municipality of Inarajan, Guam, for the Route 4 Ajayan Bridge replacement. So, Mr. Director, if you could go ahead, step forward, please. Okay. I'll just take this, yeah. So before we begin, I'm going to ask the video section to go ahead and put up the aerial graph so that the panel can get orientated. So this here is an, whoops, no, the other one, the Inarajan one. Okay. So this location here is just as you are coming.
You had it.
Okay, so this location, this bridge is just as we are leaving Inarajan and entering Maritzo. At the boundary of Maritzo there is that canoe right by the bridge. And so that's the Ajayan Bridge. And there's two parcels there that's being taken. The one on the right is a temporary, basically a temporary taking, which is to be used to stage the construction equipment. And the portion on the left that is enclosed in the red lines is actually going to be a permanent taking, which will be for part of the bridge construction itself. So, Mr. Director, if you could go ahead and elaborate then on this particular bill, Bill 277.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Atta, Vice Speaker Terlahi, Senator Torres, Senator Lee, Senator Espaldon. My name is Glenn Leon Guerrero, and I'm the Director for the Department of Public Works. To my left is Kit Ingersoll. She's with
Can you bring the mic closer to you, please?
To my left is Kit. Christina Ingersoll. I call her Kit, sorry. And she's here because she's actually been involved with a lot of the negotiations and kind of had oversight. So for all the hard questions, I'm going to refer to Christina. Anyways, I've submitted written testimony and I write in support of Bill 277-34, an act to authorize the Department of Public Works, Government of Guam, to condemn 205 square meters in fee simple Lot 10, Suburban Municipality, Inarajan, and to condemn 777 plus or minus square meters for a temporary construction easement of Lot 10, Suburban Municipality of Inarajan, Guam, for the Route 4 Ajayan Bridge replacement project. DPW conducted an island-wide bridge assessment to evaluate the condition and safety of Guam's 50-plus bridges. And the majority of bridges were built during the reconstruction of Guam after World War II over 70 years ago. A bridge inspection report dated May 27, 2004 noted that this bridge and the water channel beneath it are in serious condition. Still not closer, okay. The existing bridge shows significant cracking as well as considerable washing away of the soil around the bridge supports. The property identified in Bill 277-34 is required for the Ajayan Bridge project. This two-lane bridge sits on the boundary between Inarajan and Maritzo and carries Route 4 over the Ajayan River, which provides village residents and visitors crucial access. The subject property is required to replace the structurally deficient bridge, allow adequate passage of river flow, and allow safe passage by motorists. It is critical to replace the bridge to ensure the connectivity is maintained around the southern part of Guam. DPW developed a rights-of-way manual that is in compliance with local laws and federal highway guidelines. This manual outlines the many steps required for acquiring rights-of-way for our roads, acquisition of property and easements, and as a last resort, condemnation. The 7 owners listed on Lot 10 are Jesus Regis Concepcion, Maria Concepcion Lujan, Jose Regis Concepcion, Dolores Concepcion Tepahago, Francisco Concepcion Cruz, Vicente Regis Concepcion, Ramon Regis Concepcion. As per the guaranteed claim number 3794, in 1971, the probate of Jesus Regis Concepcion estate transferred his portion to his son, Vincent U. Concepcion. The DPW takes land acquisition very seriously, and exhaustive efforts were made to identify the living heirs of the above-listed owners so that the appropriate offers and negotiations could be effectuated. These efforts included enlisting the aid of the village mayors, discussions with adjacent landowners, title searches, researching motor vehicle, police, Guam Guam Police Department and Department of Revenue and Taxation records. It is notable that the property tax assessments were deactivated in 2014 after non-payment of yearly assessments since 2006. Alternative research included Ancestry.com, Google, and Facebook. We also, via the Office of the Attorney General, researched Superior Court probate files for Jesus Regis Concepcion's 6 other siblings and his son Vicente Regis Concepcion. The court advised that they had no record of any probate cases and that they were opened related to the other subject property owners of record. In 2017, Kenneth I. Concepcion, the son of Raymond Regis Concepcion, a potential heir, was identified through interviews with residents of both Inarajan and Maritzo. His daughter Maria Elena Concepcion was emailed with a request to forward to her father asking for any contact information of relatives still living. This email was sent on July 24, 2017 with a deadline of August 7, 2017. Unfortunately, to date, no response has been received. In the interest of public safety, the Department of Public Works has no alternative but to seek condemnation of the lot in question. Please know that the condemnation has never been our intention and is our last resort. We've acted in the best of faith in accordance with all the accepted rights-of-way acquisition processes, and now must move forward for the greater good of the general public towards the reconstruction and improvements of this vital bridge. We support the condemnation of the temporary construction easement, or the TCE. The TCE will allow the contractor to enter into the property in order to perform work that is necessary on the government's right-of-way since there is no adequate clearance. The TCE is temporary in nature and the property will return to its previous existing condition. Appraisals were done on the property in question and all funds will be deposited with the court system once the bill is signed into law. Should the court determine that the heirs of the estate are entitled to additional funds, such funds will be paid via the court system. Thank you for your opportunity to testify in support of this bill.
Thank you. So I have 2 questions. First of all, I guess condemnation as the last resort is being taken because you can't make contact with the landowners.
That's correct.
Right. So then, if this bill is approved, according to your testimony, then DPW will deposit the money in the court with the court.
Yes.
And then at that time, I guess it's up to the heirs of this property to go and get distribution of that money.
Well, so once it's approved, once the condemnation is approved, then it gives us the right to go to the court to actually register for the condemnation. So the heirs actually have 2 bites at the apple, if you will. Here they can submit testimony to you, and if for whatever reason they couldn't come to this public hearing, they can actually do it at the court level as well.
Okay, fine. But the money will be deposited with the court.
That's correct.
Okay. And the second question is the road proper itself. Is that belong now to government of Guam, or is it, because as I understand it, meant the road on Route 4, many stretches, still belong to private property owners?
That's correct. And I'm going to let Christine, who's done the research.
In this case, Gov Guam do own the right-of-way.
Okay, so they do, and that's the only way that, federal highway money is being used for this project, correct?
That's correct.
And that's one of the criteria is that Gov Guam has to own that piece of land.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Vice Speaker, do you have any questions?
Good morning, Mr. Leangura. Good morning, Christina. My questions are, so does this condemnation, I appreciate the efforts that you've made prior to asking for condemnation, so I appreciate that very much. I just want to ask this, the other bridges that were built in Maritzo took forever, over 5 years. I mean, it was ridiculous, and I'm hoping this project is not going to be like that for the people of Maritzo again. I feel for them, that they've lived through all of that years worth of construction, and now they're going to live through it on the other side of the village. But so how quickly do you expect this to be done?
I'm going to give you the engineering answer. So it's already, we've already finished, are close to finishing the design. Are we
It's finished. The design is finished.
So the construction, our construction estimate is about 400 days, so just a little over a year, correct? And so, again, the issues we had with the Billy and the Piba, one was the condemnation, so that took a ways.
Can you speak closer into the mic?
Sorry, the issues we had with Billy Piba, one was the issue of condemnation, so we didn't have access to it, and it took us a while to get through the courts and get that thing sorted out. This year, or the second portion was the construction. They went past the construction time frame by about a year, and so basically we're talking maybe 2 years or 2.5 years it took to actually do the construction portion. So I'm hopeful that we have some learning. We've come through a learning curve with a couple of the companies that have actually built our bridges down south. The one in Inarajan and the one in Bilipigua, and also the one in Agaya. Hopefully they would bid again, and through that learning curve, again, we just can only hope, but we have to follow our procurement process.
Well, I hope you include it in your RFP or whatever you're going to use it's whatever we can do on our side to ensure that it's done within the period. 400 days is still a very long time for people trying to get out of the village.
Yeah, but it won't be. The construction time frame is the notice to proceed from 400 days. So what they'll do is they're not going to actually block the road for 400 days. Okay. At least they're not supposed to. They'll do logistics, they do grubbing, and we'll do what we can. We also have gone through a learning curve to see what we can to help facilitate whoever the contractor is, prefabbing, etc.
Okay, great. And my other question is, if this construction is going to reconfigure the area so that access to the river or any, I don't know, the ocean is going to be affected, as in when they reconstructed Ypao Bridge and they took out the boat ramp, and now we're continuing to have issues regarding the boat ramp, not there being no boat ramp on that side of the island. So does this have any kind of issues involved like that? Does it change any existing access for fishermen or farmers or anything?
There isn't a boat ramp there. What we will do is we're going to allow for the river to flow freer. It's kind of now it's lowered, and so we're going to put it'll be a real bridge.
Does it by any chance address any of the flooding in Maritza on the roadways?
You're talking Barcenas, which is
just
down, or
is it going to impact any of the other adjacent areas if you expand the waterway, or does that help get the water off of some of the roads flood down there?
Yes, and I'm not aware of that area being flooded out. Do you? Okay. But I'm sure the design, when we like what we did in Inarajan and what we've done in Maritza is we've increased the capacity, we've increased the lane width, so that they're not just for vehicles but also for pedestrians, and that's what we designed.
I know that the surrounding areas, well, there are some areas, there are farm areas, right?
Yes.
Nearby. Yeah, so I just wanted to know if it affects the water running to those areas or not.
We're not anticipating that.
Okay.
I don't. Again, all we're going to do is redo the bridge that's in need of replacement, and we're going to increase the bridge facility, if you will.
Is there a public hearing planned in Maritza to inform them of this process?
No, we don't have anything planned for that, but I'm eager to help and as you say, Vice Speaker, to communicate. I know that the concerns you raise are concerns that I've been hearing, and I can't respond other than our estimates are 400 days, and again, unless there's an issue with the contractor or there's issues that we haven't anticipated. I think we've come through a good learning curve on several of the bridges. We don't have the same boat ramp issues as we have in ELIC. We're not increasing the turn, or increasing the banks so I don't see that as an issue.
All right, just my last question is there going to be any study whether this affects, like, the endangered species or anything in those areas?
With all our bridges, illegal, as you know, we had the issue with snails. The Ajayan Bridge in Route 15, we have another issue with snails. So yes, with federal highway funds, it's a requirement that we do environmental studies.
All right. I hope you will inform the villagers because, I think they should know how long it's going to take, what to expect, when, and how it might affect. I'm not sure if they have mangrove crabs down there at that area and things like that. I think
plans.
We've looked down and we've seen baby sharks swimming in and out of that, if you look over the bridge. But things like that. I just want to make sure we don't affect the environment, the species that are there.
Yeah, there is plans for outreach, something that DPW has started within this last year when we have a new project going out, that we try to reach out to the community through the mayor's office.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Espaldon, Senator Lee.
Thank you both so much for being here and for answering many of our questions. I think the Vice Speaker addressed many of the concerns that I had. And then in your last response, Christina, you were saying that you did outreach with the mayor, mayor's
There's
office.
plans for it to do outreach through the mayor's office.
I see. Yeah, and so I just wanted to thank you very much for the work that you did, the attempts to contact the landowners. And so, that was my question. If you've contacted the mayor's office, I know that Inarajan has a very active municipal planning council. And so I just want to make sure that they're engaged in this process, and we just try to be as transparent as possible and keep those lines of communication between the mayor's office and DPW open.
Yes, the mayor's office was contacted a couple of times in this case to try to identify the hares. And the first time we did not have much success. We got some leads the second time. But essentially, how we found Kenneth, Concepcion, the son or granddaughter, his daughter, was through Facebook. We did research on Ancestry.com, and we were able to get names and just start Googling the names and put it up on Facebook, and that's how we got the contact eventually.
Thank you. Mr. Leon Guerrero, I just wanted to ask you to please confirm that the Federal Highway Administration will be responsible for funding this project.
That's
funding
correct.
the condemnation, and it'll temporarily condemn 777 square meters of this lot in Inarajan, the fair market value, which is approximately $885
Per year.
I believe it's
Per year.
per year.
per year, yes.
And then the land will be returned to the owners after the project is completed.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. Cesar Smasi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So essentially, while the bridge is under construction, it's going to be like the other bridges in Maritzo. One lane will be closed, which will still allow traffic to flow. And then when that's completed, then you close the other lane. Is that?
That's correct. It will be phases, and it's because this is going to be a brand new bridge. They will do it in phases, so there will be still access throughout the construction.
Okay.
And they probably will do it with lights. I don't know if you recall how they did Yelig and Akfashian bridges, where they will put up traffic lights that will control the traffic.
Okay. Is the 400 400 days for construction, is that the conservative estimate, that taking into account that there's going to be periods of rain and that if under perfect conditions, it's probably going to be completed even sooner? So is this a conservative estimate?
It's
Or are we or is the underlying assumption of the 400 days that, everything's going to fall in place?
yeah, that's a difficult question for me to answer, Senator, because you talk to other engineers. We're not talking about a very big bridge.
Yes.
And they're saying over a year, or so. But we're not talking about what do you call it? A temporary bridge. We're talking about keeping it operational, and the issue we had with Billy People was not a temporary bridge issue or anything. It was more us with our contractor. And once we got that settled, then we kind of moved, and we moved it fairly quickly, and we did it within the time frame. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get a contractor that we can work well with and move forward.
Okay.
So 400 is to me, for as far as bridges are concerned, we met that timeline within a couple of bridges in Inarajan. We didn't meet that with Maritzo, and we haven't obviously met it with the Ajayan bridges, but so we have a mixed bag and
Okay. All right, fine. Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions, then we'll consider Bill 277-34 as having been duly heard. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on now to Bill 278-34, which is to condemn 3 lots in Tamuning relative to the Route 14B Ypao Road reconstruction and widening project. So we can put up the aerial graphic. Oh gosh. I don't know if you can see that. Can everybody see that? Oh, yeah. So you have in your packet the aerial graphic. Now there's 2 lots. The one directly across from Days Inn and Pacific LP Gas, correct? That's 2 lots?
Yes, that's correct.
And then there's a 3rd lot further north in the vicinity of the Morico equipment, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So those, all those that are outlined in red are the parcels that is involved in this land condemnation. Now, can you just explain, before we get into your testimony, Mr. Leon Guerrero, the space in between the 2 red lines, the one from across from Morico, and then the one on the north end just across from Days Inn, are those parcels that are still work in progress for condemnation?
No, you mean between the 2 red lines? Those properties has already been acquired.
Oh, those properties have already been acquired.
Yeah.
Now, with this condemnation, the parcels that are in red, does that complete all the condemnation requirements?
We are currently have 3 more lots after these ones that we are in negotiation.
Okay, and I only asked.
And it's depending on the outcome of those negotiations. We have 3 more lots beside these lots.
North of
yes, further north. And depending on the negotiation outcome of those 3 lots, we will see if we will be able to acquire or if there's potential for additional condemnation.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and we'll proceed with your testimony, and then we'll open it up for questions. And so,
I'm testifying in support of Bill 278-34, an act to authorize the Department of Public Works, Government of Guam, to condemn Lot 2143-6R/W, Municipality of Tamuning, Lot 2143-1-6-R/W, and Lot 2143-6-5, Municipality of Tamuning, relative to Route 14 or Ypao Road reconstruction and widening project. Route 14B is is a primary connector road from Route 1 Marine Corps Drive to Pali San Vitores Road in Tumon Bay, the hub of Guam's economic engine. It's a major thoroughfare and alternative route for into Tumon for employees into the tourism industry and local residents. This two-lane road also features 4 hotels, which includes Days Inn, Wyndham Gardens, Traveler's Bed, and Rest, and the Hunter's Inn, as well as a number of commercial businesses. It's the only access to numerous apartments, condominiums, townhouses, residential neighborhoods, and the Seventh-day Adventist Medical Clinic. Of primary concern beyond just access and accessibility is the safety and security of local residents and tourist pedestrians who are forced to walk on uneven, unsafe, unpaved shoulders due to the lack of sidewalks and crosswalks. The design of Route 14B, Ypao Road, has been completed and has undergone several variations to ensure utilities and stormwater runoff are properly planned for. The project is primarily a safety project that provides sidewalks for safe pedestrian passage, shoulders for bicycles and vehicle refuge, and a continuous center lane turn pocket to allow vehicles to make left turns safely without blocking traffic. Planning for these improvements has required the acquisition of rights-of-way from private landowners on both sides of the roadway. To date, 24 parcels out of 30 have been successfully negotiated and acquired. The Department of Public Works is in the process of negotiation and acquisition of an additional 3 parcels needed for this project. The acquisitions of lots 2143-1-6R/W, 2143-1-6 R/W, and 2143-1-5G encountered issues with clearance for the owners to sell. For lot 2143-6R/W, DPW was able to negotiate a final purchase price with the administrator of Innocentis Trust, the owners of the lot. An offer and purchase agreement was signed by the trust on March 8, 2017. Since then, DPW has made numerous attempts to contact the administrator of the Innocentis Trust to coordinate a closing and correction to the Innocentis Trust to allow the sale of, as per the government of Guam's laws, without success. 2 registered return receipt letters have been written to the Innocentis Trust in September 2017 and again in January 2018. There have been no return response or communication with the Department of Public Works despite confirmed receipt of the letters. Lots 2143-1-6-R/W and 2143-1-5G, Department of Public Works was able to negotiate a final purchase price with 3 out of the 4 owners. The estate of Ramon R. Flores, the 4th owner, had not included the parent lot into the original probate and therefore left the administrator, Bernadette T. Flores, the daughter, with no power to effectuate the sale of the lots. Upon a lengthy period of negotiation and assistance with the Department of Public Works, it was determined that the condemnation was the only option to move the project forward. The Department of Public Works has acted in good faith to negotiate a fair and equitable purchase price for 3 parcels. Our design team has minimized the amount of property required for the roadway improvement project to lessen the impact to all property owners along the needed rights of way. In the interest of public safety, the Department of Public Works has no alternative but to seek condemnation of the remaining lots to certify that the government of Guam owns the rights of way so that federal funds can be utilized. Please know that condemnation has never been our intention and is our last resort. We've acted in the best of faith in accordance with all the rights of way acquisition processes and now must move forward for the greater good of the general public towards the reconstruction and improvements of this vital artery. Appraisals were done on the properties in question, and all funds will be deposited with the court once this bill is signed into law. Should the court determine that the owners are entitled to additional funds, such funds will be paid via the court system. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this testimony in support of the bill.
So how long has DPW been working to acquire the 30 different parcels. How long has that process taken so far?
I'm going to let you answer that.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years? So 3, 4 years? You said over 2 years?
Oh, over 2 years, yes.
Okay.
I think it might be 3 years ago that we did the first public outreach to the owners of potential that we had the acquisition for.
Now, the parcels in question that needed to be taken, most of them, excuse me, about 26 of them were obtained basically through mutual, how would you put it, agreement. Give you the property, you give them the money, correct?
That's correct. We negotiated.
Okay. So this is a project that's been long talked about and in the community, and I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So if this bill passes, this then gives DPW 3 additional parcels that it needs for part of this road, and there's still 2 more parcels that needs 3 more parcels that need to be acquired. And has negotiation on that already started or underway?
2 of them, yes. The third one we just recently identified to be acquired. It had been categorized previously, and upon more further research, we found that it had not been transferred over to Guam. So that's why we had to start the acquisition process on that lot.
Okay. So with the remaining 3 lots, is there any prediction as to how much longer it'll be before, I mean, you can't begin turning dirt until you've gotten all that completed, right?
That's correct. So all 3 lots right now are going through, we're waiting for appraisal reports. We do require 2 appraisal reports per our manual. There's 1 appraisal and then there's appraisal review. Essentially, both appraisers will do their independent review, and then they come together and compare notes and come up with a determination of the fair market value. One of the other lots, we need to have real estate requirement survey map completed, which is also in process.
So when do you anticipate all these requirements to be completed, so that if you have to go through the condemnation process, then we can, I mean, basically a bill would be introduced?
For the 3 lots that we're still in negotiation, we hopefully will find out where we will stand with them in the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay. All right, fine. Just so that also we understand clearly, all the monies involved in these land takings are funds, federal funds from the Federal Highway Administration, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Vice Speaker, do you have any questions?
Yes, so I just want to confirm, Senator Ada asked earlier, between the 2 red properties, that those lots in between have already been taken. So would you describe it as all the lots along this road have been either negotiated or condemned on, let's say, on the northern side of this road?
And that's...
There's no property that has been condemned at this point.
Sorry. So they've all been negotiated. I mean, but has it been, I want to know if there's been any exception. For example, has any property owner been spared that their lot along this road was not?
No.
Okay. And on both sides of the road?
Yes.
So along the road, there's portions along the road that's already in the past has been identified as right-of-way for public access.
Okay.
And that is sections that we have not needed to acquire. So it's not every single property owner that is impacted by this.
Okay. Who is the administrator of the Innocentes Trust that you are unable to locate, if I may?
His name is Anthony Innocentes. He's located in California.
All right. All right, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Spaldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of the remaining 3 lots that have yet to be negotiated, approximately how many square meters are we talking about?
Let's see. One, the newly identified is 808 square meter. We have already made contact with the owners. So we don't, and they are aware about the situation, and it has a friendly outlook to it. The other one, there's one that's 130 square meters.
I'm sorry, how much is that?
130 square meters. We have had contact with the owner, but not recently. And then there's one more lot, and I cannot recall exact how much we are taking on that one. It's probably around 100 square meter.
Okay. Okay. And this area encompasses more length than width, it seems, right? Because this is, according to the testimony, more for sidewalks and bike lanes, a little bit widening of the road. Is that correct?
That's correct. So there's going to be 3 lanes, where the middle lane is the pass or the turning lane. The 2 traveling lanes that goes both directions will be wider to accommodate bikes.
Okay.
And then there will be sidewalks as well.
And of course, those are just more part of the bigger project, which is really to improve the road itself. Is that correct? Because I know that in that area closer to the Seventh-day Adventist clinic, once it rains, it's underwater. And I would imagine that drainage and whatnot would be a part of this project to make sure that it does. How far does this, I mean, we're talking about sidewalks, but how far down does this road go? Does it go all the way to the Seventh-day Adventist and then it stops there? Or does it go all the way down to Salvatoris Road?
All the way. It will be from Salvatoris to Route 1, the Marine Corps Drive.
Which would include sidewalks and bike lanes?
That's correct. There will be sidewalk on the ocean side going down the hill.
Wow, that's kind of tough to navigate. I mean, I'm just talking engineering-wise. I'm familiar with the road. Back in the first grade, I used to live in Tumon Heights, and as upset as my parents would be, I would stay late at school so I could play and then walk that road. There was no sidewalk, and it's a very narrow road. And I always wondered, what is the possibility of expanding that? But again, if you talk about the ocean side, it kind of, there's a big drop-off there. And it's going to, my mind just boggled how engineeringly you're going to be able to expand the road and put in a walkway on the ocean side without acquiring the property on the hillside.
We acquired all the property on the hillside that's required for the project.
I see.
Yeah,
oh,
and
that's interesting.
There will be retaining wall on this ocean side to support the road.
Oh, good. No, and it's definitely needed. I mean, and that area I know houses many, many residents just in that portion between Marine Drive and Salvatoris, and there is a lot of traffic in that area. This is an interesting project. It's way overdue, and again, I was just interested in how many more square meters we're talking about. We're basically talking about another 1,000 square meters that need to be acquired, and it's more in linear length than it is in width.
That's correct.
I do have one last question. On this aerial, right across Pacific LP Gas, of course, the line is very straight, but there is this little jut of property that extends beyond the straight line.
Yes.
What is that?
That is the 5G lot. That is actually a bus stop right there. So Department of Public Work is making sure it's becoming a real government property, so they have the ownership of that bus stop and can maintain it and not
Are we
imposing on private property.
Okay. Are we talking about a bus stop for students or a bus stop for mass transit?
I believe that's for students.
Because again, in my familiarity with the area, most of the students or most of the families live much further away from here. In fact, if you take a look at the aerial, there are really no residences around that area. Is there a reason why you're carving out a bus stop for this particular location when really most of the residents live up a greater distance?
The bus stop is already there.
There's a current bus
Oh,
stop.
there
It's
is
the
a bus
current
stop.
bus stop, yeah.
Okay. So and DPW has been has been utilizing, I guess, with the permission of the owner all these years. Is that how this works?
That's how it's been throughout most of the island center.
Okay. No, I'm just wondering. Okay, I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right. Senator Lee? Okay. Vice Speaker? Okay, I don't have any further questions, and so we'll consider Bill 278-34 as having been duly heard. And with that, thank you very much. And this hearing will now go into recess until 2 p.m. this afternoon, where we will take up bills. I don't have the bills. We already did that. Yeah. Yeah, so at the 2 o'clock, we will be discussing bills 297, 298, and 299, which are bills that basically will sell remnant properties and a land exchange. And then we'll recess and then come back at 4 p.m. for the Chamorro Land Trust bills introduced by Senator Frank Uggan. So we stand in recess until 2 p.m.